Thanks for joining Bitcoin Sandwich Podcast. The reason why we created this podcast was really to start from the nuts and bolts of really fiat money, currency, Bitcoin, and help you understand a little bit more what everything is about, so you can get yourself as well.
I mean,
and get curious.
we're just two average
So,
guys, man. Just starting.
yeah,
There's all these guys out there talking about Bitcoin and stuff like that, but they come from it like the perspective of like these big gurus and talking about it and like trends and so on. It's like we just want to teach about Bitcoin like as a normal individual learning it, And I think
yeah. I feel like there's not. I think we both talked about this. There's not really anywhere out there where people can go and just educate themselves on the basics of Bitcoin, what it is. It's all, hey, what's the price going to be?
where do you start, right? Where do I even buy Bitcoin, right? It's amazing. It's been around 16 years, and here nobody even knows where to buy it, what it is. I think most people still think it's a scam. Nothing lasts 16 years and gets adopted by government agencies and whatnot if it's a scam, So I think, well, hopefully we're going to be able to educate people on all this stuff,
Let me ask you this question. When you first found out about Bitcoin, what did you think of it? What was your first
Oh, it was a
reaction?
scam, man. 100%.
Yeah.
It's like it's the first time I heard about Bitcoin. I'm like, it's not actually. This is really sad. So back when I was in college, my college roommate was mining Bitcoin. I was like, oh, interesting. This is 2008 on a laptop, and I'm like, oh, that's a fun whatever. I have no idea what it is. Come back, I think it's 2017 maybe or some. Someone comes to my dad and is like, hey, you should buy Bitcoin. It's $5,000, and I'm like, Dad, don't buy that stuff. It's a freaking scam. Like whatever. Here we are now, 2025, and we have a podcast like everyone buy freaking Bitcoin because it is going to be the future.
I remember sitting back and I was hearing about the black market in Bitcoin, right? People buying stuff in the black market, right? I was like, what is this? What is this stuff, man?
But it's natural. Think about this. You're 36, I'm 36. The monetary system that we have today started, well, mostly like 1913 when the Federal Reserve was created. So the entire time that we're alive and our parents are alive, like we've been told dollars, fiat currency, government issued currency is the only currency and it's the way to go, right? And so it's natural for everyone to hear something else like Bitcoin and go, no, this is a scam. There's only one money and it's dollars, right? And so it's a natural reaction. Like as you start learning about it and you start going down that rabbit hole, you start to realize like there's only one true money, and honestly, it's Bitcoin. It's a weird dichotomy. The best way to understand Bitcoin, honestly, is I want to preface really hard. This podcast is not a Bitcoin podcast. I don't think, anyways. I think it's a podcast to teach people to think differently, and hopefully get a better understanding about like what is money, what is currency, what is the purpose of all of these things, And I think by doing so, you start realizing all the failures of our current monetary system. It's going to help you realize what Bitcoin's fixing. Because to understand Bitcoin, you have to know why is it important, what it's fixing in the first place, right?
What was the tipping point for you to like get into Bitcoin?
It was actually, it's kind of a long story. I actually started getting into it around 2019 is when I really started paying attention. Long story short, there was a good friend of mine was like, hey, buy Bitcoin, it's important. Didn't really understand it, but I started buying it. However, at the exact same time is when like the whole Sam Bankman-Friedman thing was going on, and they, there's that big embezzlement scandal and a lot of those going around. I actually got caught up in one like that, so I ended up losing, well, 50K equivalent of Bitcoin. At that time, it was like 19K. So I think I lost 2.5 Bitcoin or something. Yeah. But to this day, it still hurts, man. But after, and then after I lost it, it's like I said, 2019 and 2020, somewhere in there. I started learning about it, and I did everything I could to buy back in, right? To at least accumulate as much. Like I'll probably never, and so it's like it's one of those things. It's a bumpy road. It is volatile, but it's one of those things like at first you hear about it, you're like, this is a scam. Then you kind of are like, oh, this is interesting. You can make currency on, you can increase your dollar value, denominated value, and then once you really understand it, it's like, holy smokes, this is like the most important thing in our lifetime. And so, they're natural emotions. But yeah, I would say 2019, 2020 is when I started paying attention. Should have done it. What about you?
It's interesting because it was around the same time. I was actually sitting at work, and I don't know, he was probably in his upper 50s, lower 60s. He came up to me and was like, Tyler, do you know what Ethereum is? And I was like, I got no idea what that is, And he was like, you need to buy some. And this was the first time I'm hearing about it. And he comes up to me probably every 2 weeks. Hey, did you buy some Ethereum? I'm like, nope, I don't know what it is. He's like, you got to start doing some research. And then I finally started doing some research. And then at about a year, when I felt more comfortable with the technology of Ethereum, I started buying some, and I got used to kind of the volatility, like the patterns. And I was like, wait, this is not really going down, and it's a good technology. But it wasn't until 2023 when I switched everything over to Bitcoin, because I met a Bitcoin advisor, and they said Bitcoin is what you're going to want to invest in for, the rest of your life, essentially.
No, I think that's that's the thing too. Is I want to preface this is very important, and I don't care what any guru says.
Yeah.
There's Bitcoin and then there's crypto. Now, it's important to
Yep.
distinguish that Bitcoin is crypto. I get it. But what's important about Bitcoin versus Ethereum and XRP and so on and so forth is Bitcoin's a protocol and everything else is the same as like fiat currency. And fiat, by the way, for all those who don't know, means government issued currency. That's what dollars are. That's what euros are. That's whatever. Bitcoin, which is a protocol. And then I'm not going to, first podcast, I won't go super in depth with this, right? But you have what's called proof of work and proof of stake, and Ethereum's a proof of stake network, and Bitcoin's a proof of work network. The point is Bitcoin is a protocol. It's a peer-to-peer. If you look at the Bitcoin white papers, it's like 4 bullet points, very eloquently written. It's a peer-to-peer network where you're basically able to transact money from me to
Hmm.
you without going through intermediaries. And then it's backed by, well, the most energy intensive thing, on the planet. When I say that, I know people are gonna be like, well, that's the problem with Bitcoin. It utilizes so much energy and it's bad for the environment and so on. Well, it actually uses less than 0.5%, so less than a percent of all the world's energy. But here's the caveat. If you're gonna, let's say Bitcoin becomes the neutral reserve currency of the world, or we start transacting with it, I think it's very important that that money is secure. And so if you're going to use a massive amount of energy to secure anything, I feel like securing the monetary system in which we're utilizing to live is probably a good reason to use that energy. Right? But if everyone just took one day and shut off all their lights for 24 hours, if that, well, we would negate all of the energy usage for the whole Bitcoin network. But
For sure.
like, yeah. So like if you're gonna like there's Bitcoin, that's a protocol, that's a savings technology. Everything else is, well, it's gambling, if I'm being honest. Ethereum, it doesn't matter what it is,
Yeah.
So
And
it's an important
that's
distinction.
kind of what I took. That's kind of what I took away from it too. Like Ethereum actually started to worry me a little bit.
And again, it's taken off again. Oh, you got some
Yeah.
investors trying to be like, for those who aren't aware, you have like Michael Saylor using MSTR. He's kind of one of the big hedge guys, big gurus of Bitcoin, and his whole company is based off of buying as much Bitcoin as possible. And now you have some other companies that are going to try and do the same thing with Ethereum. The problem is it's all about going back to the basics, the first principles of all this. And Bitcoin's backed by energy, basically the most secure network on the planet. Everything else, like Ethereum, it's centralized. It's an important distinction to understand that Bitcoin is decentralized, which means that there's no ability for corruption. Ethereum, XRP, whatever. Yeah, it's crypto and so on, but it's not decentralized. I mean, you have Vitalik who owns Ethereum and he can make changes, and you have XRP owned by Ripple, they can make changes. So that's an important distinction, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm excited to dive deeper into all this stuff. And, more than anything, be curious with the viewers, because everybody needs to learn. I think us being able to bring this to the table and start from the nuts and bolts, man, and just I hope everybody understand,
yeah.
you know, what is fiat, what is cash, what system was created for us,
It's
where's the future?
well, here's the thing. Last thing, if anyone wants to understand the importance of, say, Bitcoin, let me ask this question. If I ask you, like, and I ask this, like, what is money?
Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
currency? Right? Ask you what that but most people can't answer that. They're like, we use it every day and you buy stuff with it. But the distinction between currency and money is that, well, they're both fungible and divisible and durable and transportable and so on and so forth in their unit of account. The distinction between currency and money is that money stores value. So to this day, the only money that's ever existed that we've utilized for hundreds of years, or thousands rather, is gold. Gold and silver, but mostly gold, right? It's a store of value. Everybody else knows that if you put dollars in a bank, currency, well, it's going to lose value through inflation, things like that. So once you understand the distinction between what you're using every day is not money, your dollars are not money, they're debt notes or whatever, they're IOUs, whatever you want to use, you'll
Hmm.
start to realize like, hey, I need to actually start accumulating money and not keep throwing my time and energy into this currency that could be debased for eternity.